Hello friends, welcome to Cloud Chat 365. In today's concept, we are going to see about what is Azure Network Security Groups NSG. So the NSG is a component which helps to monitor the traffic between the virtual network. So you consider you are having a VNet called VNet A, and it was having multiple subnets, subnet A, subnet B, and subnet C, and these subnets are connected with multiple resources means. And if you want to monitor what kind of traffic which is coming, from where the traffic is coming, and you want to filter out the traffic, so you want to allow only the specific traffic from the specific IP address and specific ports to your Azure resources, you can use a component called NSG, which is Network Security Groups. And each NSG will be defined with a 5 tuples we can see in the next slide, and this 5 tuples will either allow or deny a packet. So whenever you are writing any rules with NSG, so this NSG will have a condition whether it could allow your traffic or it could deny the traffic based on the rules you are going to write. So where the NSGs can be applied? The NSGs can be applied to network interface card of the virtual machine, or you can apply on the subnet level. So consider you are deploying a VM and you want to allow a traffic only from the particular IP address or port, then you can apply on the NIC level. Or consider you are having something called PAS database or a VM as a database. Then in this scenario, what you can do is you can apply on the subnet level so that the required ports and IPs only will be allowed to talk to the subnets or database. Okay, but when it comes to the best practices, you can apply NSG on both subnet level and NIC level. So NSG structure. So whenever you are creating a new NSG, the NSG will work on 5 tuples. Okay, so first is priority. So whenever you are writing a rule, it will starts with something called definition. It will ask you to define what is the priority of that rule. So priority will starts from 100 and it will go under 65,000. Okay, so each priority will define whether it is defining allow or deny the traffic. Okay, and second one is source and destination. So you here you can mention whether the source is IP address or source is service tag or ASG, application security group, and you can define the source port and destination port, and also you can define your protocol, and either you can allow or deny an action. So consider now I have a virtual machine. Okay, I hosted in a VNet called VNet A. Okay, and this VM is a Windows VM, and I allowed the port 3389 to connect. Okay, so now the connection is established from one of the client PC to this server. How means the traffic will be initiated from my local machine to the cloud server. The traffic will reach the network security group. Here, it will check the NSG rule whether the port 3389 is allowed. So, while verifying, it will validate this 5 security rules, 5 tuples called what is the priority of rule 100, consider 100, and where is the source is coming. So consider my IP is 16.17.18.19 from the source IP, and the source is IP address, and the source port range could be anything, and destination IP of this server, and then what port is the destination, which is 3389, and what port the communication should be established, which is TCP port 3389, which is RDP, remote desktop services. And if I set this rule to allow, the communication will be established. But if I set the rule to deny, the communication will be denied. So that's how the NSG will work. Yes, in this demo, we are going to see about steps like how to deploy an NSG, and then we are going to apply to the subnet level, and we are going to use something called a network watcher so that we are going to enable a network analyzer workflow for that NSG, so that we can in a real time we can able to view what kind of traffic which is coming inside that VNet. With the help of this NSG workflow, we can identify and we can capture the network traffic also. Let's get into the demo. So I have logged into portal.azure.com. So first what I'm going to do now is I'm going to deploy a new virtual network. So for that I'm going to create a new resource group which is CS365 demo NSG, and the VNet name is CS365 VNet. I'm going to deploy this on uh, east to west. Next, next, and for the CIDR range, I just go with a class C 192.168.0.0/16, and for the subnets, let me add a subnet. Sorry, this is subnet hyphen A. Let me go with 5.0/24. Click on add. Next, next, review and create, create. Okay, so the VNet creation is started. So now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a network security groups. So let me create a new network security group. So either you can go to all services, networking, and here you have network security group. From here also you can create, or else you can search in the global search bar and you can create it. Create a new network NSG. Let me use the same resource group. So I'm going to put CS365 hyphen NSG, and yeah, it's on east to west. Review and create, create. Okay, now the NSG is created. Let me go to the resource. And now here you can see there is something called inbound security rules. Okay. So here you can see we have few inbound security rules. By default, once the NSG is created, we have something called inbound and outbound. So inbound is nothing for incoming connection from your external world to your incoming, and outbound is nothing but from your cloud resource to the external world. Okay. And if you see the inbound security rules here, we have the priority which is 65,000, 65,001, and 65,500. So here it is something like allow inbound VNet. So any port, any protocol, and source is a virtual network, and destination is also a virtual network allow. So if the communication is happening between two different VNet in Azure, then he said the packet is allowed. Okay. And then if you see the next rule, which is allow Azure load balancer, so the communication is happening between the Azure load balancer, the action is allowed, but any to the external world which is denied. But if you see the priority which is 65,500, okay, the priority which is less will take the precedence. For example, now if I create a rule called 100, and if I put source from anything, port is any, protocol is any, and between the source is also any, and destination is my cloud, and I put the action deny, then what will happen is all this rule will be denied, and the rule which I am going to host will take the precedence because it is having the priority of 100. Okay. So now if you go to the outbound rules, here similar like inbound, you have three rules, which is anything between virtual network, the outbound access is allowed, and internet outbound is also allowed, but same time deny outbound access. But since this rules and this rule is take precedence with the higher priority, sorry, the lower priority, which will take the precedence, and this rule cannot be processed. But now if I want to block an outbound access of my cloud resources means, then what I can do is I will create a outbound rule like 500 with the priority, and source is any destination, any protocol. The action is deny means, then the rule will take precedence and these two rules will get denied. Okay, so that's how the outbound security rules will work. And now here you can attach that network interface card to any of the so now once the VM is created on this top of this NSG, here you can just see the list of connected devices. Or else if you want to associate any of your existing VM NIC's network interface card to this NSG, yes, you can click here and do the association. Or else if you want to do a subnet level association, yes, you can do. For example, now I created a VNet which is CS365, and if I want to associate to the subnet A, yes, I can go ahead and do the subnet association. But I don't want to do this now. So next is, let me create a new virtual machine. Okay, I'm selecting my resource group. This VM is web server -01, and I'm putting in east US. No infrastructure redundancy required since it's a testing. Let me select the image as Windows Server 2019. Okay, so now here if you see, select the inbound port. Okay, now I'm going to select no inbound port. I'm not going to allow any inbound port for this VM. We'll do it later. Let me go to the next disk. I'm going to keep it as it is. Next is networking. So in the networking, I select my VNet as 365 VNet, subnet is A, and network security groups. You are seeing, right? We have three options. One is none. Without a NSG, the VM will be created, but it is not a recommendable. It is highly vulnerable. And if you go with the basic, it will create a new NSG with the same name of the VM, and it will create. Or else, if you have your existing NSG, you can use this advanced option and click on this network security group. Here we can see the list of available NSGs. Now let me click on the one which I created, and I hope I selected the public IP. Yes, it's selected. Give next, review and create. Okay, click on create. Okay, meanwhile this VM is getting created. I told you, right, we can also capture the log of this NSGs, and we can view in the visualized format what kind of traffic which is coming to my VNet, and whether any malicious traffic is getting initiated to my VNet. We can able to see that. But how to do that means, we need to store that logs and we need to process that logs. For storing that logs, what we need to do is we need to create a storage account and a log analytics workspace. Okay, so let me just go to a service called Network Watcher, and we have two options. One is, you can just store your network security logs on the storage account, and I can review it later. For that, what you need to do is go to the network security groups, select the network security groups, and you can just scroll down. Here you have something called diagnostic settings. Click on the diagnostic settings, add a diagnostic settings. So here you have something called diagnostic settings name. So what I'm going to do now is select a diagnostic setting name as the same as CS365 NSG logs. So here you have two options. You can select all logs and send it to a log analytics workspace, or you can archive to your storage account. What I'm going to do now is I'm sending it to a log analytics workspace, and the log analytics workspace which I'm having is central logs. I'm just forwarding that to the central logs and click on save. So now I'm forwarding all the logs of my NSG to a log analytics workspace. And only this is not enough. We are going to use a service called a network watcher. Okay. In the global search, use a service called a network watcher, and you have something called a traffic analytics, right? Click on the traffic analytics, and here you want to select your NSGs, a flow log type, a log analytics workspace name, and the discovery thing. So since I have a other setup which is already ready, so we can just see the demo of that. But once you enable the logs, you need to wait for at least 2 hours to get the logs are getting enabled. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is once the VM is created, first we'll go to the virtual machine. So now we have a VM called web server 1, and now I'm trying to access that VM. I just take the public IP of this VM. Let me put a remote desktop. I'm trying to access a VM which I hosted. Now you can see initiating a remote connection. The connection is going, trying to reach the NSG, and it was checking whether the rule is allowed to access or not. It's an expected result because in our network settings, here you can see we in the inbound port rule. So inbound means a connection from external world to my virtual machine. It was no rules which is allowed to access the RDP. So now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a new rule, create a port rule which is an inbound port rule. So sources, that's what I told you. Source you can select whether if I want to allow this server to be accessed by anyone in the world, then I can give the source could be any. Or else if I want to give access only to the specific IP address, I can just use the specific IP address. For example, it could be from 78.16.15.14. Then I can allow only that specific IP or CIDR ranges. Okay. But now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to allow the source IP could be any. The source port could be star, and destination is again IP address, and destination is IP address of my virtual machine. So I'm not going to allow the traffic to all my backend nodes, which is in my subnet. I'm just going to allow the traffic only to the private IP address of my web server 01. Just copy that IP, paste it here. And what is the port, which is the service is RDP. The protocol is RDP. And once you select the service, it is already it will automatically select 3389. Or else if you want to allow any custom ports, then you can just use a service called custom, and you can put 3389 comma 80 comma SSH 22. Likewise, what you can do is you can define the ports. Okay, for me I'm just need of only the RDP, and now it selected the value 3389. Okay, the value must not be empty. Okay, just a minute, it's something. Okay, the priority. So now, as I told you, here you are seeing, right, rules are processed in priority order. The lower the number, the higher the priority. For example, now I am setting the rule as 100. So this is the highest level of rule in this NSG. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to keep the rule as 105. Okay. And allow RDP. I'm just pasting this and click on add. So now I created a rule called allow a RDP port from any network, and destination is 192.168.5.4. So once the rule is applied, at least it will take around 30 seconds to reflect. So what I'm going to do now is now I'm going to take the same public IP of this VM, and I'm trying to access the VM now. So let me go to the remote desktop services. Let me put the same IP. Now you can see, right? Now I am able to access the VM. So just me go to, so now here you can see I'm trying to access the same VM and the port is open. Now I connected to the server. Okay. Now in the same scenario, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to network settings. Okay. Let me close the connection which I take. Let me close all the remote session. Okay. Now I'm going to put another rule. Okay. Create another inbound rule. So source is again an IP address or any. The source port could be any, destination is IP address, and I'm going to use the same IP address. And now I'm just going to use the same RDP. Instead of allow, what I'm going to do is I'm going to deny the connection, and priority I'm just going to set is 104. Okay. So here deny RDP. Okay. I'm going to deny the RDP connections. Okay. And click on add. So now here if you see, earlier I put a rule 105 which is allowing a RDP connection which is 3389 to the same set of ports protocol, and it was allowed. Now I put another rule 104 which is a lower than 105, but it was a deny rule. So now if I try to connect, the connection first read the lowest, the higher number will take the lowest precedence, and the lower number will take the highest precedence, right? So this lower number will take the highest precedence and it will block my connection to the server. Let me check that now. Let me again, I am going to the overview, copy the public IP of that VM. Now I am trying to access. Now you can see it was initiating a traffic, but earlier it was just connected in 3 to 4 seconds. But now the connection is trying to initiate the secure connectivity with the NSG, and then the NSG is reading and it was trying to block the connection because the rule is blocking. So now again what I am going to do now is go to the network settings. I'm going to delete this deny rule and I'm going to keep the allow rule. Okay. So now again I'm going to access that VM. So it was connecting now because the rule allow is take the precedence. We don't have any block rule on the top. So similar like inbound, you can also create an outbound rule. For example, outbound rule like the source is IP address, the source could be anything, and destination, and you can just define whether you want to block the internet. Yes, you can just go ahead and block the internet. Similar like inbound rule, you can also work on the outbound rule. So now, as I told you earlier, you have option to view the visualization of all your logs, whether malicious traffic count, everything from the Network Watcher service. So let me go to the Network Watcher service and let me go to the traffic analytics. So now I selected, so you just need to wait for some time. So let me select a subscription which is control. So subscription, NSG, central logs. Let me set the time to last 30 minutes. So now here you can see the total inbound and outbound of all my traffic visualization of my NSG and the deployed Azure regions. You can just click on view map, and here you can see from where your traffic is getting initiated. So this is where my traffic is getting initiated, and here you can see incomplete workflow information, possible reason no NSG traffic analyzed. So here I have an NSG but I have not enabled the visualization, so traffic visualization. So that's what it was showcasing. So once you enabled the diagnostic settings and enable the traffic visualization, you can see the total the top 20 IPs of, for example, you have a service which is connected with the NSG, and you can easily identify from which 20 top IPs the communication getting initiated. How about the malicious traffics or blocked traffic or frequent conversation of the traffic, you can just able to identify. And you have also monitor the application ports, whether any malicious traffic which is happening on your secured ports. Like now if I have on port 80, I hosted my website, and I can able to easily identify in which port the communication which is happening, and which is port which is getting blocked, so that you will have option to see more information on the NSG traffic flow. So I think this lecture has give you all some insight on how the NSG is working. So when we come to the session recap, so we have seen about what is NSG, how the tuples or the rules logic is working, and how to set up a NSG rules logic, and how to use a network watcher. Like just go to the NSG, enable the diagnostic settings, and once comes to the network watcher service, you can enable traffic visualization, and then you can watch the real-time traffic. And also we have seen about the NSG flows. So I hope this content is helpful for you all. So if you really like the content, please hit like, subscribe to CloudChat 365, and if you have any suggestion or comments, please post it on the comment section so that I will respond for all your queries. And keep watch out me for more videos in the upcoming session. Thank you all. Have a nice day. Happy learning.